Throughout my Path of Radiance playthrough, you probably heard me talk about transfer bonuses a lot. Well, what exactly are transfer bonuses? Before I begin Radiant Dawn, I thought I'd take some time to discuss that. So, Path of Radiance, the 9th game in the Fire Emblem series, was released on the GameCube, and its sequel, Radiant Dawn, came out for the Wii. It just so happens that the Wii has a slot for GameCube memory cards. And when designing Radiant Dawn, they took advantage of this. If you insert a memory card that has a save file from Path of Radiance, you can transfer that save file to gain certain benefits in Radiant Dawn. You'll be given the option to transfer data when you start a new game in Radiant Dawn. However, there's a bit of a problem if you got an early copy of the American version of Radiant Dawn. Remember back in Path of Radiance when they shuffled around the difficulties for the English version? They removed Maniac mode and created an entirely new easy mode for the English version. Well, it turns out that was a perfect example of seemed like a good idea at the time. Adding an entirely new difficulty mode to a game that didn't originally have it caused problems with the data transfer. As easy mode didn't exist in the Japanese version, Radiant Dawn's programming was not designed to recognize it. Because of that, if you try and do a data transfer to early copies of the American version, and you have any easy mode save files at all in Path of Radiance, it doesn't have to be the file you're transferring, it just has to exist on that memory card, then the game crashes. For those outside America though, you don't have to worry. The PAL version fixed this bug. You can have all the easy mode save files you like, and you won't cause a game crash with data transfer. Later print runs of the American version also had this glitch fixed, but it's hard to tell whether your copy of the game is that version or not. There used to be a service where you could send your disc into Nintendo and they'd fix the bug for you, but I doubt that works anymore. So sadly, if you are American and your copy of Radiant Dawn causes crashing on data transfer, the only option is to delete all your easy mode save files in Path of Radiance. This means easy mode saves cannot be used to transfer to Radiant Dawn in that version. But with that out of the way, I can finally talk about how data transfer is supposed to work. Transfer bonuses can be divided into 4 categories: character base stats, character weapon ranks, supports, and weirdly enough, coins. First, base stats. This affects any character who reached level 20 in their final class in your Path of Radiance file. For example, Ike would need to be a level 20 Lord to get transfer bonuses, Titania just needs to reach level 20, and Soth needs to get to level 20 as a thief because he can't promote in that game. I'm pretty sure that this doesn't count what level they were promoted at, only that they were at level 20 in their promoted class. So, for characters who did reach this point, their Radiant Dawn base stats get a fixed bonus based on which stats they capped in Path of Radiance. The bonus is +5 for HP and +2 for all other stats. Let's take the Ike from my Path of Radiance playthrough as an example. He capped HP, Strength, Skill, Speed, and Defense. Therefore, in this file, Ike's Radiant Dawn base stats go from this to this. There are a few exceptions to these rules though. Firstly is Largo. Largo is the one playable character in Path of Radiance who is not playable in Radiant Dawn. To compensate for this, his transfer bonuses go to Khalil. However, bonuses to the same stat don't stack. So, say Largo caps HP, Strength, and Speed, while Khalil caps Magic, Skill, Speed, and Resistance. In this case, Khalil gets transfer bonuses to HP, Strength, Magic, Skill, Speed, and Resistance. Khalil only gets +2 to Speed in Radiant Dawn, not +4. The other exception is Soth. Instead of gaining flat bonuses to his Radiant Dawn base stats, if Soth reached level 20 in Path of Radiance, his final stats in that game outright replace his Radiant Dawn base stats, and they replace them even if they're lower, so be careful. If it looks like Soth is maybe getting a little bit screwed in your Path of Radiance file, you might want to not let him hit level 20, because his Radiant Dawn base stats are great as they are. Another note is that if Soth had higher than 15 resistance in Path of Radiance, it gets set to 15 in Radiant Dawn because that's his class's resistance cap there. Next up is weapon ranks. Characters in Path of Radiance who achieved a weapon rank of C or higher gain a fixed bonus to weapon experience when they join Radiant Dawn. The bonus is 40 points for C, 80 for B, 120 for A, and 160 for S. I'm just going to go ahead and steal an example from Serenae's Forest. If Ileana got an S rank in Thunder Magic in Path of Radiance, she gains 160 weapon experience to Thunder and Radiant Dawn, which bumps her starting rank up from C to A. Each class in Radiant Dawn has a weapon rank cap though, so Ileana can't exceed an A rank in Thunder because her initial class is capped at that rank. Also note that Radiant Dawn made knives and Laguz weapons their own weapon types with weapon ranks, but as these weapons did not have ranks in Path of Radiance, it's impossible to get transfer bonuses to these ranks in Radiant Dawn. Next is supports. I believe this one doesn't require characters to have hit level 20. Any A supports in Path of Radiance become Bond supports in Radiant Dawn with a bonus of +5 to critical and critical avoid. There is a problem here though. A lot of possible support pairings in Path of Radiance are between characters who already have Bond supports in Radiant Dawn by default. For example, Ike and Soren have a 5% Bond support by default in Radiant Dawn, so transferring a Path of Radiance file where they had an A support doesn't do anything from a gameplay standpoint. There is a secondary benefit to transferring some very specific supports from Path of Radiance. They cause slight changes in Radiant Dawn's story. And let me clarify, I do mean very slight. Firstly, there's a special base conversation you can unlock that requires Ike and Soren to have an A support from Path of Radiance transferred. As for other supports, they mainly affect a few optional recruitments during Part 3. Here's how it works. You will never miss out on the opportunity to recruit a character based on data transfer. There will always be at least one character who can do it regardless of if you did a data transfer or not. All transferred supports will ever do is give you more options. For example, at one point in Part 3, you can recruit Zihak into Ike's party. Leth and Mordecai can always do it, regardless of if you transferred or not. But Brom or Ileana can also recruit him if you transferred a Path of Radiance file where they had an A support with him. There's also a third benefit to transferring supports. Path of Radiance did not have a support library for some reason. Radiant Dawn, though, does have a support library for Path of Radiance. Transferring a save file from that game will unlock all supports from that file in Radiant Dawn's support library. The final transfer bonus is coins. Remember those things in Path of Radiance that Ravens usually have that sell for 1 gold? Don't sell those in that game. Any coins you had in Path of Radiance will appear in Ike's team's convoy at the beginning of Part 3 in Radiant Dawn if you did a data transfer. In Radiant Dawn, coins actually have a use. They can be used when forging a weapon to give it a random bonus. So that's about everything I wanted to discuss involving data transfer. It's definitely not necessary to enjoy Radiant Dawn, but it's a nice bonus to anyone who played Path of Radiance. And it gives you a nice incentive to take the same party through both games, and see them grow and develop over the course of almost 70 chapters. I'd normally end the video here, but there's one other thing that I want to get out of the way before we start Radiant Dawn, and that is, when I do my commentary on that game, you might hear me talk about something called the extended script. But what exactly is this? I thought I'd explain that now so you're all on the same page before we start. So, the Japanese version of Radiant Dawn had 3 difficulty levels: Normal, Hard, and Maniac. What the game doesn't tell you is that besides the obvious differences in enemy stats, which mode you played on affected how much dialogue you saw. Normal mode had a much shorter, more condensed script, while Hard and Maniac had a lot of extra dialogue. Japanese fans usually refer to these 2 scripts as the normal script and the hard script. In the English version, however, the 3 difficulty levels were renamed Easy, Normal, and Hard without changing their content. But what did change? Now, all difficulty modes had the same dialogue. Normally, I'd approve of this change. It feels weird to lock story content behind playing on a higher difficulty level, and it feels a little bit insulting to players who can't handle those modes. But, unfortunately, For some inexplicable reason, they decided to use the shortened down Japanese normal script for the localization rather than the extended script from Hard and Maniac. And really, extended script is a bit of a misnomer. It's not so much that Hard and Maniac have more dialogue, but more like the normal mode script is a condensed Cliff Notes version for the sake of younger players or those who didn't play Path of Radiance. It reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy IV. In Japan, they released an alternate version of that game called Final Fantasy IV Easy Type, which not only made the game a lot easier, it also simplified the language of the script to make it easier to understand for younger players. The easiest way to explain this is to show a side-by-side comparison between two scripts from one conversation at the beginning of Part 1 Prologue. These translations were taken from a blog by Emilion. I'll put a link in the description because this blog goes into more detail about the differences in the extended script and has a lot more translations that you can check out. Anyway, here you can see a side-by-side comparison between the normal mode script and the hard mode script for the same scene. And here, what I'm talking about should be obvious. The normal mode script is very much tell, don't show. It gives a rundown of exactly who these characters are, what's going on, what the situation is in the bare minimum of terms, and then gets straight to the action. It also features the peasant giving an awkward info dump on exactly what the Benyon army is doing, exactly how evil they are, and that they're after the Dawn Brigade. The hard mode script very much gets the same information across, but in a more show-don't-tell kind of way. It focuses more on how Micaiah and Edward are feeling in this particular moment, and instead of giving exposition and info dumps, the peasant's dialogue is much more what a normal person would be saying in that circumstance. Notice as well how it doesn't directly name the Benyon army or the bandits. It trusts the player to work out that information themselves by seeing what's happening. And this is a common theme for the extended script versus the normal script. The normal script has much more exposition and info dumps. And many suspect it was written with people who did not play Path of Radiance in mind, because it also strips out a lot of references to that game. So, you can tell why a lot of people are annoyed that the localization only gave us this dumbed down version of the script. And it might be a big contributor to why Radiant Dawn's story wasn't as well received within the English fanbase. Now, admittedly, there are still a lot of contrived plot points that aren't any different in the extended script, but from what I can tell just by reading this, the extended script is so much more alive. Here are a few examples of the kind of things we're missing out on by not having this script. A whole heap of world building on Laguz and Benyon politics. A few extra scenes of, to quote this blog that I got it from, the Grail mercenaries being dorks. A few sweet interactions between Micaiah and Soph that didn't advance the plot but did more to develop their relationship. World building on how healing staves work. A more thorough explanation of how the big bad of this game manipulated the events of Path of Radiance. The main villain of Part 2 having much more fleshed out motivation and characterization. Seriously, I can't stress this enough, Ludwig suffered the most from the loss of the extended script by far. More moments of snark-to-snark combat between Ike, Ranulf, and Soren in Part 3. And speaking of Ranulf, if you know about this game's story, you are probably aware of that one really controversial moment that he's involved in at the beginning of 4 Prologue. There's a good reason this comes out of nowhere in the English version. All of the foreshadowing leading up to it was only in the extended script. Overall, it seems like the normal mode script stripped out everything that wasn't directly advancing the plot, which means we lost a lot of fun character interactions. And a lot of world building. But before you despair, I'll mention 2 things. The first is that the extended script does not affect boss conversations and base conversations. All of those are exactly the same. And secondly, the English localized script isn't an exact copy of the normal mode script in the Japanese version. Though not a lot, it does add in a few elements of the extended script on occasion. For reference, here is the localized version of that scene that I did the comparison for before. Looking at it, you'll see that it's mostly a direct translation of the Japanese normal script, except Edward has an extra line at the end, just like he does in the extended script, and that bit about the Bednion army not treating the people who lost the war as human was added to the villagers' dialogue. The English localization also added some entirely new dialogue that wasn't in the Japanese version at all. This includes 4 completely new base conversations in Part 3, as well as a lot of extra clarifying dialogue and tons of rewrites surrounding the really big controversial plot point at the end of Part 3. Yeah, if you think that moment was contrived in the English version, it was 100 times worse in Japanese. The English version also rewrote one of the outright stupidest plot points in the Japanese version in Ike's conversation with the Black Knight in 3.7. I'll cover that when we get there. So think of the English localization as roughly halfway between the Japanese normal script and the Japanese hard script. I still wish they'd based the localized script on the hard script to begin with, but it's at least better than nothing. So when I'm doing my playthrough of Radiant Dawn and you hear me refer to the extended script, now you know what I'm talking about. But I personally feel the term extended script is wrong. The Japanese hard script is really the real script of the game, while the normal script should be the one referred to by different terms as the cut down or reduced or even dumbed down version, I go so far as to say. So I hope you found this video interesting, and I'll see you next time.